Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket track the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say just that star-spangled banner, yeah, wave for the land under the fray, and the home of the brave.
Don't be afraid, this is a low fat, and you are listening to HonestAnswerRadio.com. Now, where is the egg roll you guys promised me?
The views and opinions expressed on the Honest Answer Radio show are the opinions of Honest Answer Media and no one else. If you're hearing a syndicated broadcast of this show, don't hold it against the broadcaster. Rather, congratulate them on their openness, tolerance, and respect for the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. Thank you very much.
The sky is falling and it's breaking through. The walls are splitting clean in two. It's coming down no matter what we do, but we can make things better. Oh, children, bend your knees, bow your head, pray for peace, rise again. Oh, my people, bend your knees, bow your head, pray for peace, and rise again.
And welcome to the first broadcast of 2014 of Honest Answer Radio here on HonestAnswerRadio.com, where we are blasting the mainstream media in the teeth this year every chance we get. If this is your first time hearing us, well, I'm going to be the Marty half of your dynamic hosting duo.
And I will, since this is the first Tuesday night edition of Honest Answer, I'll be the Casey half, although a little more hoarse than I was in 2013.
Well, just as long as you're here with us, I guess that's all that really matters.
For those of you that don't know, this is the first show of 2014 because Marty and I have both had the flu.
Oh man, is that what that was? It was the flu?
Leprosy.
I thought it was the plague. I really think it was the plague, man. I don't know how we managed to somehow survive it, because holy crap was that stuff brutal.
Yeah, it had both of us laid low for a little while, but you know what? We're not laid quite as low as King Barry the First right now, because number one, he had to leave Michelle back in Hawaii because I think she's still mad.
You think
about
that's
them
being
selfies.
laid low? It seems to me like you got a bonus vacation out of the deal.
Well, I think she's still mad over those little funeral selfies, with that blonde-headed woman, and then Robert Gates comes out with a tell-all book.
Former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, who was
Gates.
Barack Obama's former Secretary of Defense, as well as George W.'s Secretary of Defense as well.
And George the First, I think, and I think Reagan.
And Reagan.
Basically every president since Nixon except Bill Clinton.
And man, from what it hasn't, all of it hadn't, the book hadn't actually come out yet. It's about to be released.
Right.
But
juicy quotes have already been released. And see, last night, when we were sitting down to some of that excellent Caribbean black bean chili that we were eating last night, you and I were saying, boy, we couldn't wait till the first tell-all book, came out, because this is the second term. It's about time for some of them to start dropping, and the ranks are ready to be broken, as happens in all second terms, so we were saying last night, and then lo and behold, there it is at the top of the Drudge Report about a couple hours ago.
Couldn't have been better timing, could it?
I'm telling you what, man.
I'm interested to read it. I mean, really, and
it's 536 pages, I think.
Well, they're already saying that this could have some potential 2016 implications in there, based on some of the take for instance, Barack and Hillary both admitting that their take on the surge,
the Iraq surge, and Afghanistan surge,
their stance was purely political. As if we didn't know that to begin with already. I mean, of course it was, but it's sort of like some independent corroboration of what we knew all along, and from a reliable source. I mean, Robert Gates, he's got a lot of integrity, and he's got a very good reputation, even in the Beltway. So,
but boy, I tell you what, I went to read some of the quotes from the book today. I read every word that was available, and man, he's pretty harsh about working in Washington, period. He's harsh about Congress. This is where, since he's worked in the executive branch, he has a very dim view of the functioning of the legislative branch. But he's, saying he really hated being Secretary of Defense.
I don't know if
under Barack Obama.
I don't know if I'd say he's got a dim, so much as a dim view of the legislative branch as
an exalted view
it's the
of
way
the
that
executive.
It pretty much just confirms the way that we've all felt about it at the time. He's more or less given us confirmation of things that we already knew about.
That Congress is ugly.
Yeah, and that they don't play well with others. They don't play well amongst themselves, and it's mostly
even in the same party, as a matter of fact, which. There wasn't. You like that segue there into the introducing the audio that you've got? Come on, tell us what you got. Tell us what you got.
Since you've brought up disharmony within your own party, here lately, the past few days, there's been some talk about Senator Rand Paul. He's had it up to here with this whole NSA looking at its own people. And he is considering filing a class action lawsuit, and he wants as many people to jump on board as he can get.
Basically, if you've got a cell phone, jump on that class action suit.
Rand Paul's anticipating like hundreds of thousands of participants there.
He may be lowballing it. Because there's a lot of people kind of mad about their phones being hacked.
But who's gonna be willing to jump into that class action suit? That's what I'm interested in seeing. But the disharmony comes along when you've got, Representative Peter King from New York putting his 2 cents in, more or less saying that Rand Paul, he's one of those wackadoodles and he doesn't even deserve to be in the U.S. Senate. He's saying that if Rand Paul had his way, well, then they would be, 9/11s every week in New York. And it's as if he thinks Rand Paul would actually want, 9/11s to happen just to prove his point. But I've got some audio. I'll let Peter King speak for himself. I don't want to put words in his mouth. And I've got a little rebuttal there from Rand Paul from the Laura Ingraham show. Some more audio that I've got tonight for your listening pleasure. Can't have a broadcast without hearing from, the illustrious potentate himself. I've got our president's 2014, his opening 2014 message. He's talking about how much he thinks that we ought to extend the unemployment benefits for, another million people for, what is it? How long is he wanting?
Like, 1 million years?
Yeah, more or less. And how that mean old GOP, them mean old Republicans, they went on vacation right there at the Christmas holidays.
And Lord knows he didn't.
No, of course not.
That little trip to Hawaii, that wasn't nothing.
That little trip to Hawaii that me and you paid for.
That $7 million trip.
Where he played, his 160th round of golf or something like that?
Something like that.
Let's see. Now, if I remember right, me and you, we're not big fans of old GWs. Not by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he played, 8 rounds of golf, something like that, in his 8 years?
Well, no, I think he got in 40 rounds of golf in 8 years.
In 8 years.
Yeah.
All right. And why? What was his reason behind not playing all those rounds of golf?
He was too busy working.
Well, he didn't think it would be setting a good example for the chief executive to be out playing golf when some people's husbands, wives, sons, and daughters were off fighting a war. He just didn't think that would look good, whereas our current chief executive, well, he needs to be out there playing all that golf. Because
Michelle says he needs a lot of downtime.
He does. Well, yeah. I got to say, all this is coming from the National Enquirer, but I have been getting a heck of a chuckle reading about the disharmony there in the White House where Michelle, according to the rumor mill, is planning on filing a divorce from King Barry as soon as he's out of office.
Well, now, like we were talking last night, the Enquirer got it amazingly right when they were talking about
John Edwards.
John Edwards.
Yeah. Well, look, the National Enquirer, they're a gossip rag. That's what they do. And if you take away all my son was abducted from by aliens and all this kind of stuff, every once in a while the Enquirer is spot on that they've actually got accurate, truthful reporting on some things. It's just really hard to tell when and where and what. You got to weed through all that. But it wouldn't surprise me that this was going on. Michelle had divorce papers, and this is, this way back before he was even running for president the first time. She was planning on divorcing him earlier in their marriage anyway. That there was already disharmony there, but she didn't file then because he was running for Senate.
But wait. They have a perfect family. Chris Matthews is always talking about he's a perfect dad, a perfect father, a perfect
husband, perfect American. Never even got a traffic ticket. But, I just think it's funny as all get out. The rumor has it that she's already moved into another room in the private residence. But, we'll see. We'll see. Who knows? What else is going on? Oh, did you notice that it's cold outside?
As a matter of fact, I did. My feet have been cold all day, and I've been inside.
Today, nationwide, the national average, nationwide today, temperature-wise, was 14 degrees. Man, that global warming is something else.
And the
man.
polar vortex.
Oh yeah. The polar vortex brought on by global warming. Man, that global warming's some mean stuff, man.
You know, the funny thing is, you know, CNN brought out the deal about the United States has been sucked into the polar vortex. Meteorologists around the country took to Twitter, and which it was, of course, recorded on Twitchy forever. You know, that, you know, this polar vortex thing, it's been there a long time. It is probably new to the people at CNN. There's a lot of things. They wake up in a new world every day over there sometimes, you know.
Well, a lot of them meteorologists are also amongst the same people who are bringing a lawsuit against Al Gore.
Yeah.
And according to Al Gore, by the end of December 2013, the polar ice caps were going to be melted. You know, them same polar ice caps that over the Christmas holidays had a research vessel,
A global warming
research vessel, stranded in the ice.
Not
and-
just one.
No, but the
two.
ice-breaking ship that was sent to rescue them,
It got stuck.
it got stuck.
And then the helicopter that they sent to get the global warming tourists off of the ship, it got stuck in the weather, you know, and the
Yeah.
wind was and the snow was blowing too bad. The final bill for that little rescue hasn't come due yet, but it's going to be interesting to see just how much that little adventure actually cost and what was its total carbon footprint.
Oh gosh, man.
See, they were planning on planting, I think, about 500 trees to offset the quote-unquote carbon footprint of the mission in the first place. And now the estimate is up in the thousands of trees that they're going to have to plant to eat up that nasty, dirty old carbon dioxide.
Well, I tell you what, man. I'm just worried to death about all this global warming. I ain't going to sleep at night tonight just thinking about it.
Yeah, you didn't know this, but, you know, global warming makes ice thicker.
Now, wait. Say it, and let me get this straight. Global warming
Global warming, yeah.
makes ice thicker.
Yeah.
Well, now, I guess there might be some sort of science to that, seeing as how, you know, boiling water freezes
See,
faster than
the funny thing about all
cold
this, or,
water.
it's not really funny. I guess I should say one of the interesting things is what part of what that research vessel went to go study was the warm currents that are underneath the colder, less salinated
right.
water. In other words, is the less salty
Salt
water on
content,
top,
right.
which is there's the cold water layer on top, and then there's a warmer layer down underneath, and those warm currents, and you know that's real.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah.
part is very real, but I've seen some research papers that demonstrate why having that disparity between the warmer water down there making the ice thicker. But you know, it's really funny because that information has actually been out there since the 1990s. Some of the research papers that I read were written and published in peer-reviewed journals back in the 90s. But this whole time, while that information was out there, Al Gore was doing his inconvenient truth tour, talking about how the ice caps were going to melt.
Well, look, dude, that's been our beef with this whole global warming thing all along, is that it's not, there is no one theory that has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt to be absolutely, positively true. The science is still very much up in the air.
It's not settled like people keep saying that this science is settled.
It's
Well, no,
actually
it's
pretty
not.
equally, you know, it's a pretty equal division there in the science community. It's just
Yeah.
that one side isn't willing to admit that.
One side is politicized.
Right. Well, and that political wing just happens to not be willing to admit that there may be a little bit more disagreement in the scientific community.
See, back in the 1970s, now, you were probably too young to remember it, but I actually remember global cooling. Big bugaboo.
Oh, yeah.
Global cooling was a big old bugaboo back in the 1970s.
Well, my goodness,
See,
then we heated it back up.
It's as if the scientific community is immune to politics or something, or you know, the thing is, science is subject to just as many fads as the rest of the world, and that's what a lot of people who don't know a lot about science don't understand. And the more people try to tell you that the science is settled, that's when you should be believing the exact opposite, because, you know, back when a guy named Wegener was bringing out the theory of plate tectonics, the science was already settled that there wasn't no such thing.
Well, wasn't the science settled at one time that the Earth was flat?
No, that's actually a myth.
Wasn't the science settled at one time that the sun revolved around the Earth?
Well, actually, see, that was religion that said that, and the scientists were going, you know, the thing is, like I said, this is fads and politics. See, every time you start mixing politics with science, the science gets all screwed over. And not only does the science get screwed over, but, buddy, you and me get screwed over.
Or at least our pockets do.
Yeah, because with all of this talk about global warming, Marty, there is no telling how much money it has cost us, this global warming and the climate change stuff that man is causing all this, when there are good scientists, reputable guys out there saying, hey, the sensitivity of the Earth to levels of CO2 is not actually a proven thing.
Well, look, dude, we're gonna chase this rabbit all night if we don't quit. I mean, my goodness, there's just too much. I've still got some more audio too. I mean, I've got other things that we can talk about. You know, there's also been a big bugaboo over the holidays over at MSNBC with one of their hosts, Melissa Harris Perry. You know, we've taken umbrage with her on more than one occasion, and she stuck her foot in her mouth, or at least her panel did, putting up a picture of the Romney family, and they had adopted an African American child, and they made a joke about it. They thought it was, you know, humorous, and one of them made the comment like, you know, one of these things just doesn't belong here, and
yeah, but it's all right. She got on TV and cried about it and
she
apologized.
said she was sorry. Well, you know what, man? She messed up, and she said she was sorry. Now, I hadn't agreed with anything that Melissa Harris Perry has ever said on her show. Not ever, not once. I don't even think I agreed with her when she was telling what time of day it was. But she made an apology, and for some folks on the right side of the political sphere, that's just not enough. I mean, they want her
fired.
They want her fired. You know, just like they wanted Martin Bashir fired. I didn't even want Martin Bashir fired.
I didn't
for
either.
what he said about Sarah Palin. It was vile. It was despicable, and he should have been called out on it.
But see, his apology sounded every bit as sincere.
Every
me.
You know, Alec Baldwin's even saying, "Hey, man, if I cry, can I be forgiven too?" No, Alec, you're a jerk. It doesn't matter what you say. Nobody cares. You suck. I mean, and your show was just awful, Alec. I mean, it was just awful. But Glenn Beck had penned a letter. He wrote a letter to Melissa Harris Perry, and he sent it to his own publicist and said, "Look, I don't know where to begin or how to get this to her, but I'm sure you do." And I've got an excerpt of Glenn reading that letter aloud, and I like his stance on that, and I think we could all learn something from Glenn in this. I think we could all take a little something from his words. You ready to just jump on into some audio, man?
Yeah, let's roll back.
All right.
Roll back here to the Rand Paul.
Rand Paul.
Peter
all right.
King.
We'll start with Peter King first. Now, this is what Peter King had to say on Rand Paul and his stance with the NSA. If I can get it. There we go.
The NSA is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. No one's privacy is being violated. Despite what Senator Rand Paul is talking about, the NSA is not listening to American phone calls. All they are doing is they are taking the records from the phone companies of phone number to phone number. No names, no addresses, no content. The only time those numbers can even be looked at is if a foreign terrorist makes a call into the United States. Then the NSA can find out what number they called. Then they have to go to court so that the FBI, the Justice Department, can get a warrant to listen to those calls. The NSA is not listening to anyone's calls at all, and no record at all can be looked at unless it has a direct connection with a foreign terrorist. So Rand Paul does not know what he's talking about, and Rand Paul is really spreading fear among the American people. And he also, today I understand in the show, is also comparing General Clapper to Snowden. I mean, to me, either he's totally uninformed or he's part of that hate America crowd that I thought leftists in the 1960s. In any event, he doesn't deserve to be in the United States Senate for spreading that type of misperception and absolute lies, to be honest with you.
All right.
Now, wait.
Go
See,
ahead.
people in Kentucky decided that Rand Paul deserved to be in the Senate. Peter King doesn't actually get to make that call.
No, he doesn't. And, based on Rand's comments and the way that he views the NSA spying on its own people, I don't see where he gets hate America out of. On the contrary, I hear just the opposite coming out of Senator Paul.
I think I
It's
hear
his
coming out
love
of
for
him
America that
and the Constitution.
exactly. Exactly.
and-
Our right to be secure in
And-
our own homes.
And him comparing James Clapper. James Clapper lied to Congress. He lied to the representatives of the people. And Rand Paul said that if Edward Snowden deserves to be put into a jail cell, that James Clapper deserves to be put in the same cell.
Right.
Now, I think that's a fair statement.
Now, I don't agree with the way that Edward Snowden handled this situation. I do not like the fact that he just that he cut and run. That he took this information from the NSA and then ran to another country and sought asylum from our enemies and has distributed all of our secrets to anyone really who would listen, where he could have exposed this in another way. He could have went about it in a different way.
Well, he also could have had the courage of his convictions and took his lumps.
Well, that's right.
Even though in the beginning people were saying off with his head, death sentence for treason, things have cooled down somewhat so that even his harshest critics, and I'm one of them,
right.
I do think he should pay a penalty, but I think this whole death penalty thing should be just completely off the table. Get the guy to come back home, because number one, it's not just him we have to think of. He's got parents too that had nothing to do with this.
That's right.
And I think he should be allowed to come back home and face a penalty. But does it even necessarily have to be like years in prison?
And who exactly made Peter King,
judge, jury, and executioner?
I mean, is he King? Is he the one that gets to decide all of this? But let's let Rand speak for himself. I mean,
he's pretty capable of defending himself.
He was on the Laura Ingraham show this morning, and he answered some of King's criticisms. Let's just hear from him.
Peter King's comments about, well, if we listen to Rand Paul and we rolled back the NSA, we'd have all these people in New York dead. Because, I don't know, 9/11 or what? I mean, where does that come from? I mean, I heard that and I said, Congressman King, where are you coming from?
Well, I think there'll always be people who succumb to fear and want to readily trade their security. But I think there are valid questions here, and the real questions are, you have an administration who has used the IRS to go after conservative groups and religious groups. They're using their health care to go after people's religious beliefs as well. So is it a big stretch of the imagination to think that they might abuse the NSA also?
What was your reaction when King said what he did about the people would be dead if they listened to you? I mean, what was it? Were you offended?
I think when people are so over the top like that and really so bombastic that most people discount it, I think that's probably it's taken for what it's worth. But the bottom line is, when you look at it objectively, when we've asked questions to the NSA, most objective observers have decided that really they don't think any terrorist plots have been foiled with this data collection program. And see, the thing is that's lost on a lot of people is I am in favor of the NSA. I am for spying on terrorists. I just think it needs to discriminate in the sense that you go to a judge, and the reason that we separated police power from judicial powers to have some checks and balances, and people who don't understand the importance of separating the judiciary from the police power, really, I just don't think.
That's the whole point.
Now, which one of them sounds reasonable? Which one of them sounds like they've actually thought through their...
Right. A lot of this is also causing even more division amongst the Republican Party, which, quite frankly, right now, I think there does need to be some division in the Republican Party. It is that old establishment part of the Republican Party that Peter King represents that I have taken umbrage with and that you have taken umbrage with over this time. They want to label people like Rand Paul or some of the people in the Tea Party and everything as extremists. They hate America if they're trying to go against anything that the legislative branch or the executive branch has set out for us.
Or the old guard.
Right.
Of the Republican Party, even. See?
Rand Paul was a very outspoken critic of the Patriot Act, as were you and I.
Yes.
Because it did give certain powers to some of our the police and
it certainly muddied the water between judicial and police powers.
And these warrants, these nameless warrants, which is like saying the NSA, what Representative King is okay with is that the NSA can just willy-nilly compile all of this data. They can. They say they're not listening in, and I believe that they're not listening to every single phone conversation or looking at every single email. But the fact that they're compiling that database, who's to say they won't? Look what Edward Snowden did. One guy was able to take a humongous amount of data from the NSA, took it upon himself to do that. Who's to say that those in our legislative and executive branch won't take certain liberties themselves with our personal data?
See, that's the thing. And, Rand Paul makes a point about those who are willing to trade liberty for security. Frankly, you take people's liberties away, you're not secure anymore.
That's right.
You're
That's
not
right.
secure
The whole
from,
purpose of liberty is security.
Yeah, you are not secure from the depredations of your own government or people who just don't think like you. See, if this was a conservative in office right now, look, all these people squawked about the Patriot Act when George Bush was running it through because he was a Republican.
You and I amongst them.
Yes. But see, there's these people on the other side that it was wrong for George Bush to do it. But under Obama, under Eric Holder's Justice Department,
right,
this is all okay.
It's somehow, it's the same thing is now suddenly, well, it's okay. They wouldn't take liberties. They wouldn't overstep their boundaries, even though they're doing the same things that George W. Bush was doing,
Yes.
who was a Republican. This isn't about being a Republican or a Democrat or a conservative or a progressive. This is about being an American. This is about our Constitution and not trampling on it.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter who's doing the trampling. Trampling is trampling.
That's right. That's right.
You know, and I would like to see a little bit more consistency out of my fellow citizens, frankly.
Yeah.
Not just the politicians, but I'd like to see some of the consistency out of my fellow Americans on this issue.
Well,
You've been consistent. I've been consistent. There are other people out there who have been consistently against the Patriot Act, people like Rand Paul.
you know, I don't
you
agree
know-
with everything that comes out of Rand Paul's mouth.
No.
I'm not a Paulite. Don't get me wrong. But I do agree with him on this issue.
And let's face it, when it comes to consistency, he's got a better track record.
Yes, he does. All right. Again, we're going
We
to start
gotta-
chasing squirrels
That's
again,
right.
and
We got to move on.
we're limited here with our time. So, next up on our plate,
Unemployment benefits.
I do want to talk a little bit about this unemployment benefits extension that the president and the Democrats are basically trying to shove down our throats. Now, I want to go ahead and say right now, we are not anti-unemployment benefits.
Nope.
The American worker pays in, he gets money taken out of his paycheck just for this very thing.
That's right.
A lot of the critics of this, their stance on this is that, look, unemployment benefits are fine, but if you keep extending them and keep extending them and keep extending them, where is the incentive to go back to work? The president even said today, you know, no American I know would rather have a check than a job. Yeah, well, then how come is it that we now have 91 million Americans permanently removed from the workforce?
Now, I think we were talking about this earlier. I think it's 370 million
Something like that,
people
in that ballpark.
People in the United States. So that's almost
In the workforce.
Yes. Well, no, there's no, just overall.
Oh,
There's
okay,
about
okay.
370 million people in the United States, almost a third of which are unemployed.
Those numbers are staggering.
That you're talking, you know, they keep talking about unemployment's only at 7-point-something%. No, unemployment is actually closer to 30 than it is to 7. It's not 30%.
But see, they're
you
not
know,
counting.
I can do the math, folks.
They're not counting those workers who have permanently removed themselves
right.
from the workforce.
Right. They're
at
not.
all.
They're trying not to take that into account. The thing is
I'm not
the
saying
rest
these.
of us are taking it into account.
And see, I'm not saying that these people who are drawing these unemployment benefits are lazy or anything like that at all. I'm not saying that they're intentionally trying to milk the system.
You know, not to be tooting Rand Paul's horn any more than we need to, but you know, I think his plan is a better one. You know, instead of trying to extend unemployment benefits, why don't you go to the parts of the country that are the hardest hit by the unemployment and create what he calls economic opportunity zones, where you cut tax rates for everybody in there.
And small businesses.
And create a climate. The one thing that he doesn't say enough that he should be saying in this is deregulate.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because
He
where
doesn't-
Rand
yeah.
Paul may not be speaking about that, our Senator Jeff Sessions has.
Yes.
Now, first I'm going to play
King Barry.
King Barry's words, and then I have a two-part rebuttal from our Senator Jeff Sessions. So take it away, King Barry.
This is a time when we look ahead to all the possibilities and opportunities of the year to come, when we resolve to better ourselves and to better our relationships with one another. And today I want to talk about one place that Washington should start, a place where we can make a real and powerful difference in the lives of many of our fellow Americans right now. Just a few days after Christmas, more than 1 million of our fellow Americans lost a vital economic lifeline, the temporary insurance that helps folks make ends meet while they look for a job. Republicans in Congress went home for the holidays and let that lifeline expire. And for many of their constituents who are unemployed through no fault of their own, that decision will leave them with no income at all. We make this promise to one another because it makes a difference to a mother who needs help feeding her kids while she's looking for work. It makes a difference to a father who needs help paying the rent while learning the skills to get a new and better job. And denying families that security is just plain cruel. We're a better country than that. We don't abandon our fellow Americans when times get tough. We keep the faith with them until they start that new job. What's more, it actually slows down the economy for all of us. If folks can't pay their bills or buy the basics like food and clothes, local businesses take a hit and hire fewer workers. That's why the Independent Congressional Budget Office says that unless Congress restores this insurance, we'll feel a drag on our economic growth this year. And after our businesses created more than 2 million new jobs last year, that's a self-inflicted wound we don't need. So when Congress comes back to work this week, their first order of business should be making this right. Right now, a bipartisan group in Congress is working on a 3-month extension of unemployment insurance. And if they pass it, I will sign it. For decades, Republicans and Democrats put partisanship and ideology aside to offer some security for job seekers, even when the unemployment rate was lower than it is today. Instead of punishing families who can least afford it, Republicans should make it their New Year's resolution to do the right thing and restore this vital economic security for their constituents right now. After all, our focus as a country this year shouldn't be shrinking our economy, but growing it. Not narrowing opportunity, but expanding it. Not fewer jobs, but doing everything we can to help our businesses create.
I just can't let that one go. I'm not going to let it go on anymore. I've heard enough of you, Barry. We get it. It's horrible for the poor working mother who can't afford to feed her children. It's horrible for that father who's trying to train himself so that he can get a better job. Hey, man, exactly what was it why is the man out of the job? Why is that woman out of a job? Maybe we should be looking into that and fixing those problems instead of offering just, I tell you what, why don't the government just give everybody a check and there's no need for you to go to work at all?
You know, let's bring this closer to home. How come, we've got a very good friend, a guy that I graduated high school with, driving a truck on icy roads up in North Dakota because we won't build a pipeline to get oil down here, so he has to go up there and freeze his buns off, which is hard on a guy from Alabama, folks.
And hard on his family, by the way, that he doesn't get to see because he has to go all the way to North Dakota for work.
Now, if they would build the pipeline, not only would there be jobs constructing the pipeline, but there would be jobs locally to distribute that oil. Over the holidays, while you and I had the flu and couldn't get on the air, a train carrying crude oil up in North Dakota had a wreck.
Mm-hmm.
Caught on fire and burned for
Called
days.
a massive explosion.
I mean, it burned for days. Okay, there's some serious environmental damage there. For all these green folks out there, there was some serious environmental damage caused by that fire. You know why that fire happened? Because they were having to put the oil on a frickin' train instead of carrying it through a pipeline. When they were building, I wrote about this on our blog, when they were talking about building the chemical weapons incinerator here in Anniston, everybody was in a panic about them burning it here, and then gradually we were made to see the sense of the fact that, hey, transporting the stuff is a lot riskier than burning it up in place.
Right.
Okay, putting the stuff on trains and transporting it to another incinerator across the country had more potential for harm than keeping it here. Likewise, why is it less of a risk to put crude oil on a train and ship it all over the country than carrying it in a pipeline?
Well, look. Let's let Jeff Sessions give his take on this, because he also gets into in our second part of this. He will get into the American energy portion. But let's let Jeff talk for a second.
We have a serious unemployment situation. Perhaps the most grim concept that we need to be well aware of is that workforce participation, that is, a percentage of Americans in the working age group that are actually working, is lower today than at any time since the 1970s. That's a stunning statistic. Not since women entered the workforce in large numbers have we seen such low workforce participation numbers. So I would say that first and foremost, an unemployment extension bill is treating the symptoms of the problem. It's an aspirin for a fever, but the fever's been raging for weeks now. Something is causing it, and we need to deal with the cause of it rather than continuing to treat the symptoms.
All right. Now that's part one there that Senator Sessions touched on, and that is exactly my point and your point to a certain degree too. The unemployment insurance, it's a temporary fix. We can't just keep extending those unemployment benefits. Eventually,
and never address the root cause of the unemployment in the first place.
Right. Exactly. This was right up there with Nancy Pelosi when she's making her little stump speeches about this, making the asinine statement that this unemployment benefit package is somehow or another creating more jobs. How exactly does unemployment create employment? How does paying someone to remain unemployed create employment?
How about getting it the other way around? Create the employment, and then we don't really have to worry about this. Now, before you go and play the second part, I do want to bring up, last week, or maybe possibly it was over the weekend, our local paper, the Red Star, made note of the fact that in 2013, Jeff Sessions had the highest word count of any senator that took the Senate floor. In other words, he spoke more than any senator. Now,
he had something to say about every issue.
Well, the Star was lamenting what the Jeff Sessions subject matter. In other words, he's not communist enough for him.
Right. He wasn't speaking their language.
Yes. Now, the thing is Marty and I are both pretty darn proud that that our senator was taking a stand, was making our, because see, every time he gets up there to speak, he's speaking for me.
Mm-hmm.
He's putting my voice out there because I'm one of those people that elected him and sent him to the Senate to represent me. And I'm proud of the fact that he was doing it, that he was out there on the Senate floor, for lack of a better term, running his mouth on my behalf.
And his point that this is merely treating the symptoms.
That's exactly what I want him to say.
Not trying to alleviate the problem overall. Part of what he was saying in his speech, too, is that the unemployment problem in this country right now is a direct result of Obama's policies. I mean, it's not just his take on energy. His whole health care package, this Affordable Care Act, if you will, has created more unemployment than any other policy that he's put forth yet.
Well,
I mean, it's not just his war on coal that has created a huge amount of job loss, and his over-regulating The fact that employers, small businesses, cannot afford to pay these outrageous insurance premiums that he's forcing down their throats is causing them to terminate employment. Our unemployment problem comes from President Obama himself.
Yeah, let's just make that clear. We're talking about less jobs.
Yeah, he loves to make these speeches and say, you know, this is...
We got to take care of everybody.
If the Republicans just had a heart, you know, they would see that they need to extend all of these benefits. We need to open up more of these welfare loopholes. We need to put more people on food stamps. We need to give more people unemployment extensions. We need to give the American public a free check. The United States government just needs to start cutting a guaranteed income for every American. That's his solution right there. You know, there's a word for that.
Yeah, it's called stupid.
Or socialism.
Well, yeah.
It's socialism. But there was a second part where he goes, where Senator Sessions talks about the Obama administration and his energy policies. And let's hear that.
The tragedy is that the policies of this administration are driving this poor growth record. It just is. First and foremost, the proposals have been to tax more. Taxing the private sector will not create growth no matter who you tax. And there are other problems here. We need more American energy. Energy produced in America creates jobs in America. It creates wealth in America. It keeps us from exporting large amounts, billions and billions of dollars to Venezuela and the Middle East and other places around the globe. And we could be producing that energy here, creating jobs here, keeping that wealth at home here, strengthening our economy and creating growth. That's what we should be doing. The administration has blocked American energy. They've dragged their feet in every shape, form, and fashion, whether it's moratoriums in the Gulf and blocking in Alaska, blocking the pipeline for our neighbors in Canada, and blocking production on public lands. This is not the way to create an economy. We need a tax system that's not always going up, but is more growth-oriented, simpler, more focused on creating growth. We need to eliminate every unnecessary regulation that burdens the American competitive marketplace and makes us less competitive globally, and instead of adding to them. And we've never seen anything like the plethora of new regulations being issued day after day, week after week, month after month, many of them challengeable constitutionally as being beyond the power of bureaucrats to issue, because Congress didn't pass the law to justify it.
Bingo was his name. Oh.
Well, apparently, you know, our local newspaper here, they don't like to hear it when Jeff Sessions says things like that.
Oh, you mean like maybe the answer?
The people who voted for him, that's exactly what we sent him up there to say. I mean,
that we've been taxed enough already, and
yes.
No matter. I like what he said, or I like what he had to say, saying it doesn't matter who you tax. See, that's the Obama administration's whole shtick: inequality, inequality, inequality. We have an income inequality in this country, and we've got to take it from those who are earning way too much.
Yeah, and some of us take exception to the government deciding how much is too much for somebody to earn.
Well, the Obama administration's answer to the unemployment problem is to tax those who have achieved success in their employment. And once you get to a certain point where you're making a certain amount of money, well, then your success needs to be punished. And if you are a corporation, if you've worked hard and built a corporation, Well, then your corporation, once it starts making a certain amount of money, then you have become evil. And you must pay a penalty for that success. And a lot of these companies' only recourse is to cut back on the people that they've employed.
Just a little side note on all of this when you start, because basically what we're getting into here is public sector versus private sector. I know you're a fan of Hillsdale College.
Love Hillsdale College.
Because they take no federal funds or state funds.
Right.
They just educate.
And they offer a lot of free courses online so that you can educate yourself.
Yes. It's a great university. Well, over on PJ Media, on their YouTube page, they've got Bill Whittle talking to, I think he's the dean of the college, the president of the college. I'm not sure exactly what his title is. But he's talking about public sector versus private sector. And one of the things he brings up is the creation of the railroads. When the U.S. subsidized the creation of the East-West Railroad, Vanderbilt, no, not Vanderbilt. Oh, what was the guy's name? I cannot remember now. But anyway, the private sector went north-south.
Right.
They laid better track. They were less expensive to transport goods and people on their track.
When the government has stayed out of it.
Yeah, well, they didn't let the government get involved. They went and bought the land from private people.
Right.
Paid a fair price for it, constructed better track, delivered more goods and people
at a lower cost.
And the fella got rich.
How dare he?
But at the same time, he created wealth for other people by doing that. See, one of the biggest things that people talk about, we've got to have the public sector, otherwise we wouldn't have roads, we wouldn't have railroads. Crap. That is crap.
That's crap.
American innovation tops everybody else's. I don't care who you are. When the American private sector takes the bit in its teeth and sets out to accomplish something, we accomplish great things every time. But you know what? You got to have that leash off.
That's where those regulations come in.
Exactly.
It's tightening that leash.
Jeff Sessions is talking about all these regulations coming out. There's something like 1,300 and something last year. Regulation.
That some of which could very well be challenged on a constitutional basis.
People are getting kicked off their own land in California right now.
Not just in California.
But they're being kicked off their own land specifically in California because their neighbors are complaining they don't. This is out in the desert. People who are kind of living off the grid.
Right.
Well, now they're being told, I'm sorry, you own this land, but you know what? You can't live on it. They're literally being evicted by SWAT teams.
Yeah.
Get off your own land.
Which is something, by the way, that we're going to do a little more. We're going to do a little more digging into that and be able so that we can bring you more information on that in the coming weeks, because, man, there's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about. We've got just a few minutes left before we get off the air. I brought up at the beginning about this whole Melissa Harris Perry thing. And I don't want to, jump into so much what she said or what anyone else has said. There's 2 points that I want to make here in playing this Glenn Beck thing. The whole point, Glenn Beck's whole point is, if you fight monsters enough, you very well may become one. And you and I are conservatives, and a lot of our listeners are conservatives, and we approach things from a conservative viewpoint, and we're constantly at odds with progressives. And we must be careful in how we make our fights,
so that we don't fight. Is every bit as important as the fight itself.
Right. Let's just listen to this to his letter real quick. It's only a couple of minutes, and it's not the letter in its entirety, but it's the last half of it that I found the most telling.
I truly believe that our side now is refusing to see her for who she is, and we're engaging now in the worst kind of political destruction. Both sides do it. Both sides will, in the end, if they continue, be the cause of the death of a once great and united people. Could you please pass a note to me from me to her? I have no idea how to get it to her, but I want her to know that while we may and should meet on the battlefield of ideas, the politics of destruction has got to stop. I fear this time our side sees blood in the water and is going after her and MSNBC. It's more than wrong than anything she said here, especially since their intent is to hurt and destroy, and hers was not. I'll be making this point on the air on Monday. She needs to know that there are people that don't hate her and do have reason. We do not have a right as people to not be offended. We do have a right to speak our mind. We do have the right to tell a joke. But as citizens of a free society, we also must recognize that because we share those rights with a very diverse society, we are going to hear many bad jokes, many crazy opinions, and many wrong theories. We need to celebrate the fact and recognize that those theories, those crazy opinions, and those stumbles will make us stronger as individuals. Please let her know she's in my family's prayers tonight. She's wrong on many things, but I don't believe she's a bad person. And even the best of us screw up. And in the grand scheme of things, if this is her big screw up, she's way ahead of me as a human being. I think that what is happening here is a collective moment for our side to say, let's not become those things we despise. Let's not become that. My side is the truth. My side is humanity.
That's what I wanted to leave us with tonight. You know,
because this is 2014. This is a midterm election year.
Right.
It's going to get pretty ugly.
It is going to get ugly. But the truth must win out. It doesn't matter whose side it's coming from. When we're making our decisions about where we're going to cast our votes in this upcoming election, we cannot base it on the parties. Because as we've seen, like with this whole Peter King, Rand Paul fight, that is two men from the same party. It's not about the parties anymore. It can't be. It's got to be about who has the interest of the American public at heart. Who is going to adhere to our Constitution? All of these regulations that have come about, are they constitutional? Most of them? No, they're not. But they're being pushed through, and the American people are either don't know about them or they don't care. This whole MSNBC thing with all these apologies and Martin Bashir, the Sarah Palin thing, we're so caught up in the personality of who is saying what that a lot of times we forget what's truly at stake here. It's our Constitution. You don't have to like what somebody says. We don't have a right to not be offended anymore. That's not a right. We shouldn't even be thinking about this thing. You know, we were talking about this whole Duck Dynasty issue. You know what really torques me off the most about, you know, the Duck Dynasty, Phil Robertson saying something about homosexuals, Melissa Harris Perry making an insensitive interracial remark, Martin Bashir talking, people being upset because Martin Bashir suggested that Sarah Palin should have someone defecate in her mouth. You know, the worst part about that to me is, why were we paying so much attention to those things? In 2014, let's not worry about being offended.
Yeah, let's worry about getting some people some jobs.
Let's talk about steering back towards the Constitution. You know, if more Americans would spend a little more time being offended at our Constitution being trampled, as opposed to whether or not they don't like what comes out of someone's mouth. A lot of these things that have happened from 2008 to now wouldn't even be an issue. I would like to see, for 2014, my wish is that we would be more concerned with political issues, the issues that affect my pockets and yours. If we would think about, our constitutional rights and whether or not they're being trampled. I am sick to death of people saying, this is why I don't pay attention to politics.
This is why we do.
Not paying attention to politics is nothing to be proud of. Not voting is nothing to be proud of. For 2014, if we do nothing else, pay attention. Let's not be so upset at who's trying to take away our entertainment as who's trying to take away our rights. Let's not worry about who's saying something that's going to offend us so much as who is trying to take away our liberty. Our country was founded on liberty. It was founded on the idea that we could have religious freedom, not freedom from it. We should not be so concerned about you've hurt my feelings so much as you took my job.
You took my rights.
We are a nation of immigrants. We should not be worried about whether or not we're going to offend someone who is here illegally, so much as we should be concerned with, are we adhering to the Constitution? We were founded on, our country is built around our Constitution. It's not a very complicated document.
No, it's very short. It's actually pretty easy to understand. It doesn't take a constitutional scholar to delve into it and interpret it for you. It really don't. It's a simple document. More people should read it.
So this year, this is an election year. It's a very important midterm election. There's a lot at stake here in this election. Our country's future hinges somewhat on this election. We've said before that word progressive, progress, it's not necessarily a positive thing.
It is not what you think it is.
No. Progress can also mean going off the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
So for 2014, my wish is that we as Americans would pay less attention to being entertained and more attention to being secure in our liberties. Now, that being said, I'm not going to give you our big commercial spiel. We have a sponsors page. Do us a favor. Go there. Take a look at the people who are sponsoring this show. Patronize them. Look at what they have to offer. I recommended one of our sponsors to someone this week who they've had their debit card information stolen from them twice this year.
Mm-hmm.
We've got sponsors that can fix that. Give them a look. If you're still looking to be entertained, well, we also have a little channels page there on our website. If you're looking for your sports, we just had a BCS championship football game last night. That we've got some people on our page, Jeff and Sean there at Sports World Radio. They could have told you all about it, man.
They can tell you all about all the ice bowls.
That's right. Sports World Radio, the fastest hour in sports. Man, give them a look. Those guys are some of the best in the business.
And give Pastor Rick a look over at Challenge from the Heart.
That's right.
Because we need to be on our knees a little bit more in 2014.
Just like our opening song said.
Yeah.
Pray, people.
Yeah.
Pray.
Bend your knees and bow your heads.
That's right.
And go to Challenge of the Heart, and Pastor Rick will tell you exactly how to do that.
Our hearts need to be challenged in 2014. We've been too comfortable for too long. Let Pastor Rick challenge your heart. Also, we have another group that can provide some good quality entertainment. Matter of fact, they're broadcasting us right now, Going Beyond Radio.
At goingbeyondradio.com. They got a little bit of everything over there. There's politics. There's
politics, paranormal, spirituality, economics, you name it, man.
Yeah, they've got it over there. Check out goingbeyondradio.com. You can get it on all kinds of platforms. Shoutcast, iTunes,
Live 365, Blueberry, Tuned In,
Roku.
Love the Roku, by the way. Just love the Roku.
And so check out goingbeyondradio.com.
And tell them we sent you.
Yeah, and then you don't have to worry about being entertained. You'll have more time to spend studying the Constitution.
That's right. Don't cheat yourself. Treat yourself, people. All right. That being said, we will be back again on Thursday. I am so happy to be back in the saddle again, man. I needed that couple of weeks off there. Casey and I both were suffering a serious political malaise. We really needed to have a chance to breathe and regroup and let our minds focus on our family and some other important things and healing. But we are so glad to be back, and we're gonna hit this year full on, man. We're not gonna back down.
It's full speed ahead.
That's right. Well, until Thursday, man, you guys just be good to each other, man. Be exceptional Americans and be proud of it.
Good night, y'all.
Later, guys.